welcome. I'm Dr. Bart Rademaker, prescription for your transformation, real people, real conversations, and real success. I got this sexy voice. It's called bronchitis, and that's how I'm starting 2018 with a bang. Really excited about starting off 2018 with a special guest that I have today. And as I finish up the setup, always important to get this on all the pages that are important to me so that everybody gets to hear what we have to say, because today is important. And, we all like to begin the year with, being positive, being generative. In fact, we like to be positive and generative all the time. And what happens in life is that we get challenged with all sorts of blows and setbacks and distractions and stuff that really gets us in a confused or conflicted place. And unfortunately, what happens is that too often, we suffer alone. We find ourselves in this space that, we believe for whatever reason that we're a loser, or that we're not good enough, or that we're rejected, or the world is rejecting us, and so that we now become nothing. And this is a place where you just have to tap into a source of energy that we can find in all of us. It's just that little flicker that reminds us that, yes, we can have hope. Hope is there. Keep on hoping. And again, we want to qualify what that really means. And today, I'm so delighted to be talking to a very special human being, a being that I believe that many people will need to pay attention to because of as a spiritual coach, his ability to connect with you in so many different dimensions to really make a difference in your life. When you're stuck, when you're lost, finding this guy out there in the south of Florida, a little warmer than I am. And love to have you, brother. Rajiv, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, man. It's an honor to be, the first message of the year, I guess. Let's rock and roll.
Absolutely. And, what a blessing and a gift that you then give to others and myself with that. And thank you so much, Sedona, for being here today. Again, my loyal producer who puts up with me. Actually, I'm pretty easy, I think, except though sometimes I don't show up. But besides that, we'll keep it really decent for Nolan, who's training today. So thank you for joining us today, Nolan. So today is about hope. And I know Raj said something very critical and foundational in that as we start the year, it is important to decide, what's this year going to be about? Some of the coaches out there will try to suggest to you or recommend to you, says, make this year about something. Pick a couple of words that mean something to you and do that. And Raj very appropriately said to me, because we both picked the same card, and we'll explain that in a moment, about hope. So take it away, Raj, and tell us what that's all about for you.
Hope is a very, I don't think it's something that I think a lot of people need right now. When we look at the world, all we see is a lot of darkness around us, even though there is such beautiful things happening. And I think, like with everything that's been going on in the political world over the last year, it's like even this country's been so divided. I think with, just there's been so much hate that's been pushed through the media. There's been so much different, other things going on. And I think that, we lose track of who we are. We lose track of what we're about, and we lose track about what our purpose is. And we get beaten down, and we get fucking hit.
But you weren't supposed to use any swear words, Raj. We
decided broke already. It's all good.
2 minutes in.
2 minutes in. Damn it. So, but we get beat down, and it's just about getting back up and keep on persevering. There was that quote that, I forgot what the damn quote is now, but if you keep pushing through or something like that, and it's not over till the end type thing. And you might get beaten down 50 times. As long as you get up 51 times, that's what matters.
Yeah,
not how
there's
much
another
you
quote.
fall.
Yeah, there's another quote. It's not so much it's how many times you fall down, but it's how quickly or how far you fall down is how quickly you stand up again.
Yeah.
And and that's true. And sometimes, when we talk about hope, and I was blessed back in New Zealand, I had this amazing transformational trip for myself and with about 30 other transformational coaches. And quite frankly, if I'd known you then, Raj, I would have been honored to have you there because we also worked with a dear friend of the Dalai Lama over there, just a beautiful human being. Like you, just in his presence, it's like, wow, this is awesome. This is awesome. That's just happening. And this was a group with indigenous tribe in New Zealand called the Waitaha, the water bearers, and it's probably one of the oldest tribes in the world. And one of their legacy is like there are no rules except for one, do no harm. And I had the fortune to go with my daughter, Gabriella, and we spoke in a rugby stadium in front of many, many New Zealanders. And, she was talking about hope. And for her story was hope was hold on, pain ends. And so somehow, as you discussing, is that pain is inevitable, and suffering is still a choice. But somehow you've got to find that fire inside of you that says, you know what? There is this glimmer of hope that we just got to hold on and not just beat ourselves up. Because I think, as you have tons of experience with this, is that people get beat up, they beat themselves up, and then find themselves being completely alone.
See, you're not alone.
Yeah,
There's a call from the universe right now.
yeah. I better mute that somehow. Go ahead and answer that. There you go. Let me mute.
So, I agree. Like, I think we get beaten down over and over again, and we think that we're alone in this, and you're really not alone. I've had some very interesting experiences over the last couple of months just interacting with people that have given up, and they called me to help them get back on track. And these were dear friends of mine that I would never think would go down that dark path. And it moved me, like I felt pain inside my heart to the fact that these people were giving up, and I saw so much hope inside of them. I saw their light. I saw what life was about for them, and I was always wondering, why are they not stepping into this? And I dug deeper into that, and I realized that there's so much pain that they're holding on to, and so much guilt, and so much judgment, and so much, hey, wear this mask today, and I have to be this person, or wear that mask today, and that person. And we wear so many masks, we forget who we are. We forget what our life is about. We forget what our purpose is. And I'm here to come along and say, rip the goddamn mask off and be who you're meant to fucking be and unleash your soul. Hell is looking back at the end of your life and meeting the person you could have become.
Yep.
And I look at that, and that is etched in the back of my brain, and that's really what's gotten me to step out a lot more, what's gotten me to push out more. And I've had to go through my own darkness. I've had to go through times where I was just ready to fucking end it all. And I kept pushing forward, I kept pushing through, and I kept something inside of me said, no, wait, hang on. And there's something inside each and every one of us. And we forget, and we push that voice aside. And it's about holding on and being like, yeah. And they say there's that light at the end of the tunnel. But be the fucking light and light up the goddamn tunnel. Forge your own way, whatever it takes. And I guarantee the second that you step out of your comfort zone, the second that you really push yourself past that point, life opens up.
So where do people go when they just don't know? And unfortunately, it's almost becoming an epidemic of people, killing themselves. and for a lot of different reasons, and all of them are legitimate. Our society is very critical of that, like, how selfish can you be? But here's the truth: the ultimate freedom for these people is their own death, because they're in so much pain, they're in so much suffering, and certainly people with PTSD in war zones. I mean, the atrocities that you get to experience. We're not wired to deal with some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And when you suffer this much, I mean, I can admit that I've never been in the darkest places in my life, but I can tell you there have been times where, you get really desperate, and the thought was, well, what if, right? And it was just a glimmer, because, as an intelligent person, you think of all your options, and you think, well, gosh, you know what? If pain is that severe, then death is the ultimate freedom. But it really isn't, is it?
And I struggled with that for years, figuring out that, because I had people that died and so forth that got around me, and it made me question. Tomorrow is the 11th anniversary of my father's death, and my father drank himself to death, and I look at it as a suicide.
Yeah.
And that's impacted my life and the direction that I've taken. It sent me down a dark path of self-discovery. But if you look, you don't know the seeds that you keep planting. You don't know all of these darknesses. There's, the lotus flower. It's highly revered in India. They model the chakras off of it. And we look at it and we say, wow, that's super pretty, like, whatever. But we don't take the time to understand what the story of the lotus is. The lotus grows in a pond, the dirtiest, muckiest, shittiest pond. And it stems up and it comes up and it hits the surface. And it perseveres through that entire thing. And then it breaks through to the light. After going through all of that. And then it slowly starts to open up. It slowly starts to blossom. And it becomes the most beautiful flower. And then, when it starts to open up and do all of these things, it starts to purify the water. And all the darkness, all the muck, starts to get clean.
Hmm.
I know this because my name translates into lotus. And I look at that and I always stuck with that story. You might be in the dark night of your soul. But it's always darkest before the dawn. And like you said, when I look at people that are suicidal, I don't see them as being selfish. They're in so much pain. And the only option they have is to end it all, to ease that.
Right.
To take the pressure valve off any way that they can.
I'd like to continue with that in a moment. But first of all, say, how sad that someone is so alone when there's so many people around them that could easily support them and help them see the truth and the reality of what's happening. Yeah, there's some conditions, mental conditions, that are really tough to handle. And I believe Robin Williams, the brilliant man that he was afflicted by, such intensity, brain intensity, that it was just too much for him to handle. But again, I don't know Robin Williams, so I can't tell. But here's what's important, and I want to honor Rajiv right now too, because Rajiv is an amazing human being who has very intentionally gone on this journey of discovery and self-exploration, going to many, many different countries as a photographer, taking pictures, and has come up with this incredible deck of cards. And these are all of these your own pictures? Every single one of them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Amazing photography that, blows anyone out of the water. And in addition to that, he applies his own personal experience to these photographs so that you can get a glimpse of the real world outside of you and then also what's inside of you. You know, having that visual perspective of a simple word called like faith. And if I read what Raj put with this one, and it's very relevant in our conversation right now, is faith is to believe what you do not see. The reward of this faith is to see what you believe. St. Augustine. And I think once again, combined with hope, you know, it's the never, never, never give up. You know, that's kind of my ingrained, and that's how I'm wired. You know, every challenge is always an opportunity for me to say, okay, great. You know, what can I learn from this? You know, where's the positive in this? Where's the growth in all of this? As painful as it is, or you know, even anticipating pain in the future, because pain is inevitable. And I'll suffer sometimes too. Believe me, I'm sensitive enough to choose that suffering. But having that faith and then the hope combined in making that difference. I mean, your thoughts, Rajiv?
Oh, I 100% agree. I think, that faith is one of the most important things. I mean, like we look at it from like this whole religious standpoint based off of societary conditioning. But if we pull all of that off for a minute and really get down to what it really is, it's totally going hand in hand with faith. There's something bigger than me that's guiding me for a purpose, and we know what that is. We feel that right here. That little voice behind our head telling us to hold on. And we listening to that voice, that little in-between bit, that's where faith lies. And the more that we start to listen to it, the stronger that it gets. That letting go of this and coming from this. And there's so many of us that go around, and the reason that we're suffering is because we're here. We're staying up here and we're analyzing and we're overanalyzing and we're analyzing some more on top of all of that. And we forget to listen to this little voice right here saying, hey, dude.
So what's the path? You know, what's the path for people, you know, to begin to go into that place of the heart? Because you know just as well as I do, and I'm going to challenge, you know, Sedona here. I'm going to leave Nolan off the hook today. He's the newbie. But when it comes to how we, you know, get trained, and then I call it training specifically because, you know, from the day that we're born, we're trained to behave in a certain way by our mentors, by our parents, by everyone else. This is the way that you need to behave. This is how we define success, and success is typically defined on all the external factors. And so we use our intellect and our brain to see how we get there, but there's no heart in it. And so, you know, my question then, you know, and I'll start with Sedona first, but my question more for you, Raj, after I ask my question to Sedona, is, you know, how do you help people, you know, get there, you know, get back into the heart? And let me ask Sedona, you know, when you look at your future, and you know, I've always been very impressed by you, and how you're very dedicated and ambitious and have high goals, and which I think is kind of unusual in so many people in our culture today, so many young people. So where is that for you? How much time are you really spending in your head? Maybe this is too personal. And how much time do you feel that you get to spend in your heart? It's a vulnerable place to be in your heart because so many people are scared of it.
Yeah, it definitely can be, but it's also where, as much as it's where darkness lives, it's also where your passion lives. And I think that's something that if you learn to cultivate your passion enough that you don't have to spend as much time in the darkness. And I think that one thing that I kind of have a bad habit of is I get a little bit, as much as you want to help people, it's important to also separate yourself from the situation and think about how you would handle it if it was happening to yourself. And that's something that I have unfortunately had to deal with a lot in the last couple of years. And you kind of have to learn to separate your heart and your brain and your faith all together. You have to keep it together sometimes, and you have to learn how to pull it apart and nitpick it a little bit. And that's really hard to do, but it's really important when you're dealing with hard situations like that.
Well said, well put. Raj?
You repeat the question?
My question for you, or give feedback to Sedona. What do you think she said? I mean, how do you
No, I
feel?
think she was spot on with everything
Yeah.
with that. Like it's definitely, you got to try and keep it together. And there's days when you're going to lose your shit. You're not going to keep it together. And those are the okay. Those are okay. The most important thing in those moments is not judge yourself for it.
Right.
You know, take
You
the
know,
pressure off.
it's what I keep on saying, and it's the foundation of my platform is, and the story about it, which I'll share another day. It's an interesting story, but it's just give yourself permission to be human, and
Yeah.
and I think we forget about that, and give yourself permission to be passionate about something and be okay with that, and regardless of what the rest of the world thinks. Especially if you're an innovator, um, or a thought leader. I mean, there are going to be people out there that will disagree with you, and I know for me at times it was a challenge because I think out of the box, and being in the medical field, it's a challenge because people, think I'm nuts because I'm in the personal development world. It's like, what's that? Now finally they're realizing the value of just something simple like that. Same thing with doing adult stem cell therapy that I do in the Bahamas. Incredible, inroads that we're making with transforming people's lives physically and mentally. Helping people with Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and all sorts of cardiac disease and other issues. It's just phenomenal. But again, the amount of criticism, that I get. And so we are so easily criticized. We so easily judged. And we so easily judge ourselves that if we can just give ourselves permission just to be human and realize all the things that happen to us are essentially triggers. And that's all that they are because we've given it some sort of meaning. But my question then for you, Raj, is, how do you support people? Because you're a phenomenal coach and you've helped transform people's lives and, some of the most darkest and scariest times for them. How do you get them back to really connect with their heart and get back into the game?
For me, every single one of them is different.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, there is a theme. And, it's as simple sometimes as just literally putting your hand on your heart and closing your eyes and feeling that for a minute and feeling what your soul tells you to do and connecting with that vibration. That's one simple way that you can take a step when you're feeling that way to jump out of here and come from here and just let it go. But then also too, like, you're taking yourself so seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that term, about being so far out. Well, what does that really mean? Well, if I'm so far out, that means there's people that are so far in. You're in it, and they're taking the game so seriously. And I'm here to come around and be this little joker and be like, hey there, buddy. What's going on? Let's have a little fun in there. Where's that guy at? Why don't you come out and play for a little bit? Why are you taking this game so seriously? It's just a game. You can do whatever you want. The world is yours. The prisons that we put ourselves in are exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
Self-made prisons. What is enlightenment? Enlightenment is walking through that door and
Right.
turning around and realizing there was never any door in the first place. How many prisons do we put ourselves in? How many shackles do we give ourselves? How many demons do we judge? And what are we really judging with these demons? What is a demon? A demon is a fallen angel. What is an angel? An angel is a servant of God. Who's God? Your God. And when we stop and we take a step back and we look at these demons, we realize they've been guardians for us. They've been protecting us in the best way they knew how, with the resources that they had at their capability. And let's stop for a second and stop judging them for the job that you assigned them to do. And let's, like you say, change the meaning. If they were actually not demons and they were actually guardians and angels for you, how would that look? How would that feel? Really ask yourself that. And that's when the freedom comes in.
Right.
That's when you lift the mask off. You know, there's that story you and I spoke about the other day.
I have it in front of me right here.
Yeah. About the Madman by Khalil Gibran. And the first chapter of the book is how I became a madman. And it goes, they stole them from me. They stole them from me. How dare they steal them from me? I woke up that morning and I looked high and low. They stole my masks. How dare they steal my masks from me? I ran down the street screaming at the top of my lungs. They stole my masks. They stole my masks. How dare they fucking steal my masks? I'm improvising, by the way. But I get to the town center. I stand on top of a box. I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. They stole my masks. How dare they stole my masks? A young boy walks up. He says, look, a madman. And in that moment, I looked up at the sky and I felt the sun on my face for the first time. And I realized I was grateful for them. I realized they gave me a gift. I realized I didn't need those masks anymore. I realized in that moment that I was set free.
Right. And so allow me to, that's by Khalil Gibran, the Madman. So let me translate for anyone who's confused, because I get easily confused. So what Raj is really saying is that when we're growing up, and usually it's the first 5, maybe 8 years, our immature brain can't handle all the complexities of life around us, all the interesting situations that really are causing us to fear, our own personal loss of survival. And so we respond in a certain way. And these then become our masks that we need to be a certain way or a certain person to be loved or to be someone or to have significance. And unfortunately, what happens based on these experiences that we have at a very young age, and they begin within the first days that we're born, that we give it a certain kind of meaning that is the best meaning that we can give them at the time. And as Raj is saying, they served a purpose. That purpose was to protect us from a certain kind of meaning that we thought would cause our own death. But as are adults, and as these trends continue, as they remain established and get strengthened in adulthood, then it becomes a problem because they're not real. And if, as Raj says, if you can just let them go and give them the real meaning of what those things were, if you can tap into what that was, give it the real meaning and realize, as an adult, this is what that means, and this is, what would be important for me at that time. And giving us that opportunity to realize what was the lesson, as Raj is saying, what's the demon? And they're really angels. Because, part of our conversation early on also relates to this, is that our worst times can become our best times. Failure isn't a failure unless you don't learn from any of this. And so the opportunity is, life inevitably is going to have its challenges. And we do have the ability. No one can take this away from you. Everyone does have the ability to overcome them. And the best thing is that if you think you can't, then there's someone out there that can help you. And someone for sure is a family member, some friends, or amazing individuals like Raj. Right?
Absolutely. You as well. Sedona as well. Our new friend Nolan as well.
We don't know about Nolan yet. He hasn't spoken yet.
Oh, don't worry. I can see it.
We'll have to test him. So I want to move on another card, because these cards are amazing. This one was the faith one. Interesting enough, both Raj and I, picked the first card that we both picked was the Hope card, which is that one. And do you remember where you took this picture, this Hope one?
That was in Ireland, Northern Ireland.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's tremendous. So I picked the first two cards. You picked another one, and I apologize. I'm just overcoming the flu, beginning of the year. So you want to pick a card, my friend?
So I already did pick a card, but I'm gonna save this one till after. Just go in and just grab one randomly and see what comes up.
All right.
Bliss.
All right. Tell me about it.
Follow your bliss. The universe will open doors where there were only walls.
Mm.
Isn't that a little fitting? And you know what? I shot this photo in Ireland too.
Is that right?
Yeah. There's a theme here going on.
Oh, I know what your last card is, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, I can go into it now.
No, that's not. Does it start with an M?
Yes.
Okay.
Want to save
Well,
that?
no, not yet. I picked a card.
You got a few of them there, man.
Yeah, I got a whole bunch here, but I don't think I don't think I have your Bliss card. There's a master.
No, I told you some of them didn't make it into the deck. This is the master.
Right. So here's the one. So it's kind of in the same realm as Bliss, but it's Celebrate. And I think what happens too often is we do forget that we can't celebrate. We can't celebrate life. And I've been fortunate to have grown up in 5 different countries and have seen so many different people with a lot less than what I have, and people with a lot more than what I had, and appreciated people who could find happiness and people who couldn't. And one thing that through the process of coaching is the ability or the focus on gratitude, the focus on rewards, the focus on just simply celebrating what is and what's possible. And so this is a great one that makes me smile when I look at the picture. While we are living in the present, we must celebrate life every day, knowing that we are becoming history with every work, every action, and every deed. Mehdi Stepanek. So that's the card.
Yeah, I took that in the Himalayas.
So talk to us about celebration.
Just enjoying life, man. Stop taking it so seriously. Learn to have a little bit more fun and get that weight off of your shoulder. That little chip on your shoulder that you're keeping there. It's great to have it. It gives you drive. It gives you purpose if you frame it right. But don't let it weigh you down. Learn to take it and put it aside every so often and celebrate your victories. Be grateful. You can't feel depressed and gratitude at the same time. Go out and play. It's the beginning of the year. People have resolutions, people have goals, people have all these different outcomes that they want to achieve this year. But how many of those have you really put into your list about you having fun? One of my top goals this year is to learn to play guitar. Is to go out to Burning Man and play the guitar at Burning Man.
Awesome. You play guitar and I'll play my hang drum.
There you go. See? So we got something to work towards now.
Mm-hmm.
When you play an instrument, isn't it funny that word that they use, play an instrument? No one ever tells you, go work that piano. What does that intrinsically say? Go have fun. Go let loose. And when someone really lets loose, you get people like Hendrix that come out. You have people like Carlos Santana that comes out. It's funny. I was watching a documentary, Carlos Santana, how they made their break was they took LSD before Woodstock.
Right. I heard that.
Yeah. And then they went on stage And the only thing that kept them sane was going into that music and focusing that energy and really just letting loose into the instrument and playing instead of losing their mind. It was a metaphor there. Learn to play.
You know, it's so critical, and so often, again, getting back to or referring back to my earlier conversation about how we're trained to be a certain way, and so many people, they think in this term, I have to have before I can do, and no, before I can do, and then then I can be, and I can be happy. So I have to have X amount of money before I can do this and then be happy. And Louise Hayes, turned it upside down and says, be, do, and have. Be the person you want to be so you can do what you want and have everything. And again, it really comes down to, when are you going to celebrate? How are you choosing to be aware of your present moment? And that's why, this was relevant, being present. And so, I know Sedona has a lot of faults, especially, a nutritional one. So we figured that one out. We just figured out a different fault that she has. And I'm kind of curious, Sedona, how do you celebrate?
Usually I celebrate with my art. I grew up a dancer for a long time, and music has always been a part of my life. That's definitely one way that I let loose is I sit in my office and listen to music, and I have like notebooks for each like project that I'm working on at the time, and I listen to music and I write in my notebooks.
So I'm curious because one of your cards is about rewards. And I'm just wondering, for me, rewards and celebration, in a sense, come in hand in a way by giving ourselves the gift, setting up the gift in advance, not getting the gift. So my particular case, and I might, as a result of this gift that I'm planning on giving myself, be off the air for extended periods of time because I'm going to be diving into the virtual world, virtual reality world, and that's my son's fault. It's the way that I get to connect with him. He's 25 years old, and he is so into this stuff. And he introduced it to me the other day. It's like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. And you can do things there that you can't do otherwise. But the thing is that, I'm in the process of losing another 10 pounds. And I don't look overweight, but I guess by some standards, I guess I'm obese, but I don't feel it. But the point that I'm getting at is that I could have gotten the system the other day, but I chose not to. It says, look, once I get another 5 pounds off, I'm going to give myself that reward. And it's purposeful. It's kind of like that disciplined action. And this is what you say, for every disciplined effort, there is a multiple reward. And therein also comes that opportunity to celebrate. But then it's living a life with real intention versus just randomly doing stuff or just going through life, in a state of stupor or, being half asleep because you're not really making very conscious choices. You're just following the herd. And we can't find that happiness unless we just stand out for ourselves and say, look, I'm choosing to celebrate now. I'm out of the box. I'm choosing to be this way. Your thoughts on that ramble, Raj?
Well, first off, after you lose 5 pounds, what's your reward? You're gonna have a big slice of chocolate cake?
No, I'm going to get one of these virtual reality systems.
Oh, I see. Gotcha.
So, yeah. And that's what I'm saying. I might get so hooked up on this thing that I won't be able to show up for my radio show.
Oh, there you go. Oh, yeah, VR is awesome. We need to talk about that off air. But, in terms of the reward, I think, like on top of all of that, have a purpose. And if you don't know what that purpose is, then your purpose should be to find your purpose and have milestones. You know, a lot of the younger generation, my age group, the millennial age group, younger than me, even myself, for many years, I had no purpose in life. I didn't know what to do. I was bouncing from thing to thing to thing to thing and just doing things until I figured it out, though.
Right.
And, you know, but the thing on top of all that is to attach rewards to every single thing. And it could be small rewards, it could be giant rewards. Make sure it's in alignment, though. That's why I asked you about if you're going to have cake, because that doesn't support your 5 pound thing. You know what I mean? So you want to make sure that, you know, like whatever you do should be something that is complementary.
Hey, I still get cake on my way down, so I'm okay with cake.
There you go.
What's your purpose, Sedona?
I think, at least for me, and I think a lot of other people have this kind of in common, I think my main purpose is to find a new way of entertainment. I think that's always kind of been like a bridging theme over my whole life. When I have a very strong connection to early television, early movie styles, early film styles, and all of that, everything that I ever knew growing up and even before that is going away now. People are getting off cable, they're getting off radio, they're going into more streaming things, and there's a lot of new technology coming out, and I really think that part of my job in this lifetime is to kind of sort through that and get us to a new place of entertainment. And I think another main purpose of mine, the reason that I am so interested in business, is to be successful without trampling people. There's so many stories where people say, well, I could have had $1 million if I stepped over this person's head to get it. And I really, really think after studying so much business and entertainment that there are ways to do it. And that's my job, to find that path and to teach other people the same.
You know, that's awesome. And I think actually it's perhaps even more relevant than you may even realize, or maybe you do. That's just an assumption on my part. I think our world is dramatically changing faster than we can almost keep up with, and people are going to have a lot more time on their hands. And it's a matter of, you know, how do we create that space that not only can they be entertained, but their brain expands and there's purpose within that. So that's pretty amazing that you're thinking along those lines. But also I find it amazing, you know, how so many people, like Raj is also saying, just don't have a purpose. You know, when I was growing up, I don't know why, but I had very clear purposes and what my life was going to all be about. In fact, in my early 20s, I pretty much designed my entire life. And it hasn't quite materialized exactly the way that I thought it was, but for the most part, it did. Didn't get the $1 million either, but I didn't trample on anybody either as well. And it's interesting that you say that, and I think that's also really quite relevant. I'd like to see what Raj's perspective is, because it's also part of you know what's happening in our world today, is how people are becoming so self-centered and will just, you know, roll all over you and trample over you, and that's a problem. And somehow we have to find a way that we can find that the generative collaboration together. And that's also the purpose of this platform. It's just tapping into that collective wisdom and creating a generative collaboration so that we can help each other and not at the expense of others. And as great as some of these corporations are, you know, the big ones, and I don't have to name any of them, you know, they do just trample on others, and that's not right. Raj?
No, 100%. But you know, like let's take a step back here. You know, like and look at it as why. Are people rushing to take? Why are they being self-centered? Why are they on social media promoting their entire life and so forth like that? And like it's on some level, when you have 7 billion people online, you want to be relevant. You want to be seen because you're feeling insignificant. And we equate our love to how many likes we get now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and there's going to be a shift because there's no fulfillment in that. Because every day you're on there and you're just like, yeah, okay, wow, I got 10 today. Holy shit, I got 20 today. Holy shit, I got 500 today. Da 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 da. And then the day that drops back down, holy shit, I only got 10 today. Oh fuck, I feel like shit. And we attach all of these different things, and it's to our life and so forth like that, and we create these masks again, and to be the certain way online, and you can be whoever the hell you want online. How many people message me because they see me post photos of my travels and da 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 da, and they think I'm always on the road traveling. Really, I'm on the road traveling maybe half the year, not the whole year. But there's this perception. And, like, I think with purpose, it comes back to what really lights you up. Like for me, like, I had to do a lot of work on people that wanted to end their life by the end of 2017. And it came back to what was their purpose. It came back to what we talked about earlier about judging themselves and thinking they're not worthy enough, thinking they're not good enough to step into that, to shine. And like, people talked to me afterwards and I told them this, and I said, through that I found more of my purpose in that, in helping others, in serving, in becoming greater than myself. And I really didn't understand that. The purpose of that. Connecting with one another is what gives us purpose. Really connecting. Taking the phone and tossing it aside and saying, hey, I see you. I see your pain. I see your suffering. Still fucking love you anyway. And we don't do that anymore. There's a separation. And then, so my purpose is unleashing people's souls. Seeing what life is about. Seeing what they're about. And I see people now. And they go through and they're these robots, these automatons. And they don't want to wake up because waking up is too hard. But here's the problem though. Once you do actually wake up, you can't go back to sleep. You can never go back to sleep. You can never go back to the way things were because now your peripheral vision went from here to here and you see all of these little things around you. And slowly but surely, you just keep chipping away at that. And because you've been asleep your entire life, you didn't know what your purpose is. And that's what's going on in society today. It's society today, there's so many choices. There's people that go online and they become YouTube stars. There's people that go online and become porn stars. There's people that go and they dig ditches. There's people that go and build skyscrapers. And because we have this vast variety of choices now, it creates this like vacuum of like, well, what do I do? What do I really want to do? And I think like with the millennial generation, like there's a big gap in that. So many people I talk to. Here's the thing though, in our heart, we know what life is about. You, at an early age, figured that out. You knew exactly what this was telling you. You homed in on that purpose. So then now I guess the question would be like, what was it that at an early age you sat down and mapped out your entire life? What do you think your techniques were? And if you were to pass on that knowledge to somebody into helping them find their purpose, what would you say?
Yeah, interesting you bring that up. I've never asked myself that specific question, but I was thinking about it earlier on. in my particular case, it was a very traumatic event that happened that caused me to shift and not accept the status quo and say, okay, great, what am I going to do about it? What is it that I can do beyond myself? My passion in life is to help others. My passion in life is to create change, enhance life, and advance peaceful awareness. And that's the foundation of everything that I do today. That's the common thread of absolutely everything that I do. I didn't have that realization then, but as I reflect back, I realized, that's what I was doing even then. And what opened me up, because I had a very privileged life, it was a traumatic event that really ignited that. Could have happened afterwards? Possibly, I don't know. But that's my story. But then again, I think I also was a different generation, and that different generation really, as a baby boomer, was more determined to make life by their design, and that's where also purpose comes in, is that they're designing their life the way that they choose to design it, and I think it's different, from then on. But I know we don't have a lot of time, and I do want to address that last card of yours.
So the last card,
Yeah.
the mountain. I am here for a purpose, and that purpose is to grow into a mountain, not to shrink into a grain of sand. Henceforth, I will apply all my efforts to becoming the highest mountain of all, and I will strain my potential until it cries for mercy.
Wow.
Boom.
Boom. And is that from the book The Greatest Salesman in the World?
Yeah, Ogmandino.
Yeah. If anyone ever needs to read an incredible book with a shocking, well, not a shocking ending, but with a dramatic ending, because you find out who that person is, it's remarkable. It's amazing. So what's the mountain for you, Raj?
The mountain is still being built. Oh, I'll know what the top of the mountain is until I get there. It might take another 50 years to reach there.
Well,
but all I can say is that I'm ready to build it.
let me put it. Huh?
I say I'm ready to rise out of the dirt.
So let me put it this way, because I know you. The height of the mountain, what's on the top of the mountain, is the day you take your last step, because you'll never stop building it.
Exactly.
And that's what's great about human beings like Raj, and I have the deepest respect and honor to know him as a brother and as a friend, and a partner, not in crime, but a partner in making a difference in this world. Because
partner in hope.
Partner in hope, and a partner in action, and a partner in manifesting, and a partner in intention, and a partner in just helping others. And I look forward to getting a lot of lessons and teachings from you, as I know that I will support you in so many different ways. And that's what this platform is also about, is tapping into that collective wisdom, working together, and figuring things out, not simply relying on the giants out there. And the giants have a purpose. They shine a huge light on the rest of the world for us. Take one great example, respect for, that's Tony Robbins. But there's so many others. And my point, and this is also part of what I plan to be doing in the future, is really tapping into the rest of the world. Incredible people like yourself, like Sedona and her incredible talents, discovering the genius in Nolan, and bringing that all to the table and say, hey, you know what? We don't have to rely on all the big institutions and all the big names and all these big people that we can never become. I can never be a Tony Robbins. First of all, I'm only 5'7", not 6'4", whatever he is. So I think that's relevant. And I think what happens so often is we get stuck, in this place like, I can't be him. I can't have those things. And when the gift is already within us, and that gift is that there's 10 times more within all of us, just like you're alluding to earlier on, there's so much more potential in all of us. That together, this togetherness, this with hope, can make that happen. So I'm Dr. Bart Rademaker, prescription for your transformation, real people, real conversations, real success, talking to Rajiv, a spiritual leader, a thought leader. And I want to give you the last, minute or so just to share your thoughts and words. And Sedona will give me the we're done signal, and we'll wrap it up.
I just want to say that, like the darkest night, when you look back on these stories and you change the meaning of them, you don't know what the ripple effects are. The reason that I'm able to lock in and the reason that I'm able to reach people is because I've taken all of my darkness and I've turned it into my greatest strengths. Every chink in my armor has become the strongest parts of my armor now. That's all I'm going to leave you with.
Nice. Thank you so much. And Sedona, last question. Rajiv, how do people find you?
Oh, go to mindsethq.com and there's an email form there. You can hit me up there, or you can find me on Facebook.
Awesome. And get his cards. These cards are amazing. How many cards are there?
I think there's 52 cards in the deck.
52 cards in the deck, and just beautiful. And then you just pull them out randomly and then focus on that during the day. So once again, I'm Dr. Bart Rademaker, prescription for your transformation, real people, real conversations, talking to an amazing spiritual leader that you're going to watch out for because he's going to transform so many people's lives. And I'll be back next week. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Dr. Rademaker's Prescription for Transformation. Join Dr. Bart Rademaker live right here on Radio Star Worldwide each week or on demand 24/7.